Laozi, known as the wise founder of Taoism, is a figure shrouded in mystery, whose historical records remain fragmented and partially legendary, yet whose influence spans millennia, shaping Eastern philosophy and inspiring generations in search of balance, serenity, and an understanding of the natural flow of life. Traditionally placed between the 6th and 4th centuries before Christ, he is believed to have lived during a period of intense social and political transformations in ancient China, an era marked by instability, power struggles, and profound philosophical reflections. This context helped shape his thought, as Laozi observed the world around him with silent and profound attention, capturing the subtleties of human nature and the universe, and from them extracting principles that would become eternal. Although little is known about his biography, accounts suggest that he held positions of public service, possibly as an archivist or court official, which granted him access to vast knowledge of laws, customs, and administration, yet his soul sought something beyond worldly obligations, the understanding of the Tao, the invisible path that governs all things. Tradition also describes moments of seclusion, solitary journeys, and encounters with disciples who sought to learn directly from his serene presence, someone who spoke little but whose words carried depth and resonance. The life of Laozi, therefore, is not measured by material achievements or ephemeral glories, but by his ability to observe, understand, and transmit teachings about harmony, simplicity, and alignment with the natural flow, offering a radical alternative to agitation, unbridled ambition, and external coercion. This first contact with his story is crucial, as it allows the viewer to understand not only who he was, but also the context in which Taoism emerged, the need for balance in a turbulent world, and the relevance of his principles for any era, including contemporary times, when anxiety, haste, and disconnection from nature have become predominant characteristics of modern life. It is the life of Laozi, with its blend of silence, observation, and simplicity, that establishes the foundation for immersion in the Tao, preparing the mind of the viewer to receive teachings that go far beyond conventional logic and immediate formulas for success, leading to a perception of existence marked by fluidity, patience, and contemplation. At this point, it becomes clear that understanding Laozi is not merely learning about a man, but recognizing an invitation to inner transformation, to slowing down, to valuing the invisible and the intangible, and to accepting that true wisdom often resides in what is not forced, in what is allowed to emerge naturally, in what flows without resistance, in the simple act of being in harmony with the Tao that permeates all aspects of life. The Tao, the central concept of Laozi's thought, can be understood as the fundamental principle that governs existence, an invisible, eternal, and ineffable flow that permeates all things, from the smallest grains of sand to the movements of celestial bodies, uniting them in a silent and constant harmony. Unlike human laws, limited and rigid, the Tao is not imposed, does not demand conformity, nor does it manifest through force or power. It simply is, acting in a natural, organic, and unhurried way, guiding the processes of life without coercive intervention. The word Tao can be literally translated as path or way, but its essence transcends any verbal definition, being more easily perceived than described, experienced in the observation of nature, in the cycles of the seasons, in the rhythm of rivers, and in the growth of trees, where each element fulfills its role effortlessly, without resistance, in perfect harmony with the whole. Laozi emphasizes that understanding the Tao is recognizing that the universe operates according to subtle and invisible laws, that human action must align with this natural flow to produce harmony instead of conflict, and that every attempt to force reality generates imbalance, tension, and suffering. The practice of the Tao, therefore, involves the perception of the interconnectedness of all things, a silent sensitivity that allows the individual to feel and respond to events without clinging to or rebelling against them, finding balance even in the midst of adversity. Throughout the Tao Te Ching, Laozi describes the Tao as the source and destination of all creation, the originating principle from which the diversity of the world emanates, and whose understanding is not acquired through pure intellect, but through contemplation, direct experience, and living in harmony with nature. In this sense, the Tao is not merely a philosophical concept, but a practical guide for life, a proposal of intimate alignment with natural cycles, with the silence that precedes and accompanies every phenomenon, and with the acceptance that existence unfolds best when the flow is allowed to manifest without resistance. To understand the Tao is, therefore, to recognize one's own smallness before the vast universe, to accept impermanence and the transience of all things, and to act in a way that harmonizes with the invisible forces that sustain life, cultivating a silent, peaceful, and resilient wisdom. This principle, although ancient, proves to be surprisingly current, offering answers to the stress, anxiety, and complexity of contemporary life, reminding us that true strength is not found in excessive effort, but in fluidity, adaptation, and the ability to be present, conscious, and integrated into the natural path of things, the Tao that guides every breath, every thought, and every action, even when unnoticed. One of the most emblematic and revolutionary concepts of Taoism is Wu Wei, often translated as non-action or effortless action, although its meaning is far deeper than mere inactivity. Wu Wei is not passivity, but rather the practice of harmonizing human action with the natural flow of the Tao, allowing choices and behaviors to arise spontaneously, in perfect harmony with circumstances, without unnecessary resistance or forced imposition. The wisdom of Laozi points out that much of human suffering comes from excessive effort, from the attempt to control the uncontrollable, and from intervening against the very nature of things, creating tension, frustration, and imbalance. By applying Wu Wei, the individual learns to observe, understand, and respond to the world in a fluid way, taking advantage of opportunities that arise naturally and avoiding actions that disturb the intrinsic order of life. Examples of this practice can be found in the observation of nature. The river that flows around obstacles without fighting them, the wind that adjusts to the curves of the terrain, the plant that grows gently toward the light without resistance, illustrating that true strength lies in adaptation and the silent intelligence of natural movement. In the personal and social spheres, Wu Wei teaches that leadership, relationships, and decisions are more effective when results are not forced, but when influence manifests gradually, guided by coherence, patience, and a deep understanding of context. By internalizing Wu Wei, the individual develops a keen perception of life's subtleties, distinguishing moments when it is necessary to act from those when it is better to wait and flow, recognizing that many battles are won simply by letting the path open. Laozi emphasizes that the act of non-forcing is an expression of wisdom, courage, and self-confidence, for it requires self-mastery and awareness of one's position in the universe, accepting limits, respecting cycles, and trusting the natural order. This practice becomes especially relevant in modern life, marked by constant urgency, excessive stimuli, and the pressure for immediate results, reminding us that not every action is necessary and that harmony and success often emerge from patience, observation, and the ability to align with the universal flow. Wu Wei, therefore, is not an invitation to inaction, but to intelligent, light, silent action in consonance with the Tao, revealing that true strength does not reside in imposition, but in fluidity, perfect timing, and conscious surrender to the natural order of life, allowing the individual to live fully balanced and aligned with the path that existence itself traces, with depth, serenity, and silent wisdom. Simplicity within the thought of Laozi is not merely an aesthetic or behavioral choice, but a profound practice of alignment with the Tao, a way of living that reflects the true essence of life without adornments, excesses, or unnecessary distractions. For the sage, the world becomes complicated when human beings stray from their intrinsic nature, seeking to accumulate, control, and compete incessantly, generating suffering and confusion, while silent virtue, cultivated through simplicity, arises naturally, effortlessly, as a consequence of alignment with the universal flow. Laozi teaches that greatness lies in moderation, that wisdom manifests in detachment, and that true strength reveals itself in humility. Thus, living simply does not mean deprivation or scarcity, but rather clarity, focus, and authenticity, allowing the mind and spirit to be freed from distractions and to connect with what is essential. This simplicity is expressed in daily attitudes, speaking less and listening more, acting with coherence instead of ostentation, recognizing one's own limitations, and appreciating the richness of the present moment, cultivating an inner peace that does not depend on external conditions. Silent virtue, in turn, is the natural expression of this simplicity. a force that transforms character without fanfare, that influences the environment without imposition, and that inspires trust, respect, and harmony in human relationships, showing that serene presence, measured action, and inner balance produce more lasting effects than ostentatious displays of power or skill. The Tao Te Ching constantly reinforces that the sage who lives with simplicity acts without competing, teaches without speaking, and conquers without imposing, revealing that true virtue lies in the coherence between being and acting, and not in appearances or external conquest. In a modern world saturated with complexity, information overload, and the pressure for immediate results, simplicity and silent virtue become indispensable tools for restoring balance, reducing stress, and cultivating the clarity necessary to make conscious decisions, maintaining harmony with oneself and with the universe. Living according to these principles means rediscovering the beauty of the essential, valuing the natural over the artificial, and understanding that true influence and wisdom are not proclaimed loudly, but manifest invisibly, serenely, and powerfully, guiding actions, thoughts, and relationships toward a state of fulfillment aligned with the Tao. At the heart of Taoist philosophy, Laozi presents the concept of yin and yang, the symbolic representation of the duality that permeates all existence, showing that opposites are not rivals, but complementary, interdependent, and essential for the harmony of the universe. Yin and yang are not merely abstract concepts, but living forces that manifest continuously in nature, in the human body, in human relationships, and in social processes, creating a dynamic balance that allows the flow of life to be maintained even in the face of changes and challenges. Yin is generally associated with receptivity, passivity, introspection, and cold, while yang represents activity, warmth, expansion, and strength. However, these definitions are relative and always in motion, transforming into each other, like water adapting to the riverbed or like day turning into night, without ruptures but with natural fluidity. Laozi teaches that the secret of a balanced life is in recognizing this complementarity, accepting that each seemingly opposite aspect has its place and value, and that resisting this natural order generates conflict, suffering, and disharmony. In daily life, understanding yin and yang allows the individual to perceive that moments of intense action must be followed by periods of rest, that strength must be balanced with gentleness, that assertiveness must be tempered by empathy, and that external achievements must coexist with inner cultivation. This perception transforms the way we approach decisions, relationships, and challenges, promoting our resilience, adaptability, and emotional balance, while teaching us to observe the world with greater awareness of the interdependence of all things. In nature, examples abound. The cycle of the seasons, the tides of the ocean, the growth of plants, and the movements of animals reflect the constant dance of yin and yang, showing that life is sustained through alternation and complementarity, and that true harmony does not consist in uniformity, but in the fluid integration of differences. Applying this understanding to modern life means recognizing that success, happiness, and well-being do not arise from eliminating negative aspects or pursuing only the positive, but from the conscious acceptance and integration of all polarities, balancing effort with moments of stillness, productivity with introspection, action with contemplation. Laozi, by revealing this duality as a fundamental principle, teaches us that wisdom consists in flowing with life, respecting natural cycles, harnessing the strength of yin and the energy of yang, and cultivating the ability to harmonize each polarity within ourselves and in our interactions, allowing life to unfold with serenity, balance, and silent depth, in perfect consonance with the Tao. One of Laozi's central teachings is the intrinsic relationship between the Tao and the silent mind, a concept that describes the ability to empty the mind of unnecessary noise, hasty judgments, and compulsive desires, allowing perception and action to arise naturally, clearly, and in alignment with the universal flow. For Laozi, the human mind, when overloaded with conflicting thoughts, excessive ambitions, or anxiety, becomes an obstacle to the understanding of the Tao, creating distortions that block the vision of reality as it is and compromising inner harmony. The practice of mental silence does not mean repression, passivity, or denial of reality, but rather cultivating mindful attention and conscious detachment. observing events without automatically identifying with them, without reacting impulsively, allowing the hidden wisdom of the Tao to guide thoughts, decisions, and emotions. Laozi often compares this silent mind to the calm water of a deep lake. When the surface is free of agitation, the lake accurately reflects the sky and its surroundings. Similarly, a tranquil mind reflects reality clearly, discerning opportunities, obstacles, and essential truths without the interference of emotional disturbance. Integrating the silent mind into daily life involves practices of introspection, contemplation of nature, meditation, and mindful attention to small actions, recognizing that true knowledge and effective action emerge from a state of internal balance, where thought and intuition operate in synchrony with the natural flow of existence. This principle extends to ethics and social interaction. Decisions made from a silent mind tend to generate less conflict, more empathy, and greater harmony, for they are rooted in a profound understanding of context, in the recognition of others' needs, and in respect for the subtle laws of the Tao. In the modern world, where the excess of information, stimuli, and external pressures fragments attention and disrupts mental clarity, cultivating a silent mind becomes an essential practice, offering ways to reduce anxiety, increase emotional resilience, and improve discernment. Laozi shows that true strength does not reside in the brute force of intellect or in speed of response, but in the ability to maintain tranquility, balance, and mindful presence, allowing the wisdom of the Tao to guide every thought and action naturally, gently, and effectively. Thus, the silent mind is not only a mental state, but an instrument of alignment with life, revealing that serenity, patience, and conscious presence are the foundations of a harmonious, fulfilling existence connected to the invisible flow that sustains all that exists. For Laozi, nature is not merely an aesthetic backdrop or a functional resource, but the deepest and most constant teacher of wisdom, offering silent lessons on balance, adaptation, impermanence, and harmony. To observe nature is to understand that every element of the universe has its own rhythm, its internal laws, and its way of acting without resistance, without haste, and without self-assertion. A tree grows upward toward the light, bending with the wind without breaking. The river follows its course by flowing around obstacles, never fighting against them. Animals fulfill their roles in the ecosystem without imposition or unnecessary conflict. Every natural phenomenon demonstrates that true strength does not lie in imposition, but in constant adaptation, in accepting reality as it is, and in acting in harmony with the context rather than against it. Laozi encourages us to deeply observe these patterns, so that human beings may internalize the principles of the Tao and apply them to their own lives, recognizing that practical wisdom arises from the conscious imitation of nature, being flexible in the face of difficulties, patient with cycles balanced in action, and contemplative in perception. Furthermore, nature teaches impermanence, showing that everything is in constant transformation. Leaves fall, rivers change course, seasons follow one another, and that resisting change is a source of suffering. By embracing the example of nature, the individual learns that unnecessary resistance is useless, that true strength is subtle and integrated with the context, and that harmony with the world is only possible when one understands the interdependence of all elements. This perspective transcends the personal realm, also influencing social relationships and collective decisions. Leaders, families, and communities can benefit from observing the fluidity of nature, prioritizing balance, cooperation, and adaptation instead of rigidity and confrontation. In the context of contemporary life, filled with urgency, competition, and constant pressure for results, learning from nature as a teacher offers an essential antidote, reminding us that a true power lies in flexibility, silent observation, and harmony with natural cycles, and that a deep connection with the environment is a source of clarity, patience, and resilience. Thus, Laozi teaches us that to look at nature is, in fact, to look within oneself, recognizing that the principles that govern external life, flow, adaptation, complementarity, silence, and balance, are the very same principles that should guide inner existence, fostering practical, serene, and timeless wisdom aligned with the Tao. Laozi emphasizes that simplicity is the key to clarity and effectiveness both in action and in thought, being one of the central pillars of Taoism. For him, complexity arises when human beings distance themselves from the Tao, burdening themselves with excessive plans, hasty judgments, unmeasured desires, and worries that fragment the mind and heart. True wisdom, according to the Master, manifests when one adopts a path of simplicity, where each action is direct, natural, and without exaggeration, and each thought is clear, focused, and free from dispersion. This simplicity does not mean inaction, but acting in an essential, intentional, and harmonious way, eliminating the superfluous and recognizing what truly matters. In daily life, the practice of simplicity is revealed in thoughtful decision-making, in the ability to prioritize the essential, in detachment from imposed outcomes, and in conducting life with authenticity and coherence. Laozi compares this approach to the way water finds its path. It does not fight, it does not impose, but reaches its destination naturally and efficiently, adapting to any obstacle, shaping itself without losing its essence, serving as a metaphor for human action aligned with the Tao. Moreover, simplicity of thought allows the mind to perceive reality without distortions, seeing causes and effects, opportunities and risks, with objectivity and serenity. In practical terms, it means eliminating mental overload, avoiding unnecessary complications, and prioritizing inner clarity, cultivating a lifestyle that values the essential over the accessory, the natural over the artificial, and conscious action over impulsive reaction. By applying simplicity, the individual discovers that many difficulties arise only from excessive elaboration, that conflicts could be prevented with greater lightness, and that inner peace is not the result of external achievements, but of coherence between thought, action, and the flow of life. In the modern world, saturated with information, stimuli, and constant urgencies, simplicity becomes a vital principle to restore balance, increase efficiency, reduce stress, and act with wisdom. Reaffirming Laozi's maxim that the simpler the action and thought, the deeper and truer the impact it generates, connecting the individual directly, fluidly, and silently to the Tao, revealing that strength lies in essence and not in ostentation or unnecessary complexity. One of Laozi's central teachings is the need to live in harmony with the rhythm of life, understanding that everything in the universe follows natural cycles and silent laws that cannot be ignored without consequences. For the sage, attempting to accelerate processes, force outcomes, or resist change is a source of suffering, frustration, and imbalance. Every element of existence, from the seasons of the year to the cycles of personal growth, human relationships, and social processes, has its own time, and understanding this flow is essential for a full and balanced life. Laozi shows us that life is not a straight line, but a continuous movement of alternation, adaptation, and transformation, where moments of intense action must coexist with periods of rest, reflection, and silent observation. Acting out of rhythm with these natural cycles generates tension and wear, while aligning with them promotes fluidity, resilience, and clarity, allowing decisions and actions to be more effective and less costly in emotional and physical terms. Harmony with the rhythm of life also implies accepting the impermanence and transience of all things, joys and challenges, success and failure, presence and absence. Recognizing that each situation has its own time and intrinsic value helps cultivate patience, tolerance, and adaptability, essential qualities for dealing with the inevitable ups and downs of existence. In practice, this philosophy manifests in conscious choices, prioritizing the essential, respecting one's limits, and understanding that absolute control is an illusion. A wise leader, for example, observes the processes of their team and environment before acting, adjusting to the right moments, while an individual seeking personal growth learns to wait for the natural development of skills, relationships, and opportunities. Laozi suggests that true wisdom lies in perceiving the right times, acting when appropriate, and letting cycles complete themselves without unnecessary interference. In the contemporary world, marked by constant haste, excessive stimuli, and pressure for immediate results, this teaching becomes even more relevant, offering a path to reduce anxiety, improve decision-making, and live with greater serenity and coherence. To live in harmony with the rhythm of life is therefore to live aligned with the Tao, integrating action and contemplation, movement and pause, effort and surrender, allowing existence to flow naturally, fully, and in balance, promoting not only survival, but also the profound fulfillment and connection with the universe that Laozi describes as the essence of a truly wise life. Laozi teaches that each true wisdom manifests in silence, not as the absence of speech, but as the presence of attention, observation, and discernment that transcend words and hasty judgments. Silence, in the Taoist perspective, is a powerful instrument of learning, introspection, and effective action, allowing the individual to perceive reality without the distortions generated by rushed thoughts, external opinions, or emotional conflicts. While the noisy mind tends to react impulsively and lose itself in useless complexities, the silent mind is capable of understanding the subtle patterns of life, identifying opportunities, avoiding traps, and aligning naturally with the flow of the Tao. The Tao Te Ching repeatedly emphasizes that the sage speaks little, not to show off, but to act coherently and effectively, showing that true influence is achieved more through example and serene presence than through words or impositions. In the context of daily action, the wisdom of silence allows for more precise decision-making, conflict resolution with balance, greater empathy in human relationships, and the ability to see the essential amid apparent chaos. Laozi suggests that silence is not inaction, but a form of refined and conscious action, where the individual learns to listen, observe, and wait for the appropriate moment to act, without unnecessary interference, allowing results to flow naturally and harmoniously. Moreover, silence strengthens the connection with one's own essence, favoring introspection, emotional serenity, and the perception of life's natural cycles, aspects that are essential for those who seek to live according to the Tao. In practical terms, cultivating the wisdom of silence means reducing excessive words, filtering information, observing attentively before reacting, and valuing the learning that arises from contemplation and mindful awareness. In the modern world, where constant communication, digital distractions, and excess stimuli fragment attention, this principle becomes even more vital, offering a path to restore balance, mental clarity, and depth of perception, revealing that true strength does not reside in speech, speed, or ostentation, but in the ability to listen, understand, and act with serenity and coherence, allowing life to unfold naturally, wisely, and in alignment with the flow of the Tao, showing that silence is indeed the highest expression of wisdom and inner power. One of Laozi's most profound concepts is Wu Wei, often translated as non-action, but which in its true sense means acting in perfect harmony with the natural flow of life, without forcing, manipulating, or struggling against circumstances. Wu Wei is not passivity nor indifference, but a form of action that arises from observation, attentive perception, and alignment with the Tao, allowing each movement to be spontaneous, efficient, and harmonious. Laozi teaches that resisting the nature of things generates conflict and suffering, while conscious acceptance and adaptation promote superior results with less effort, revealing that true strength manifests in softness, flexibility, and fluidity, not in imposition or aggression. This principle is observed in all natural phenomena. The river does not force its path. It flows around obstacles and, in doing so, maintains its continuous course. The wind does not create resistance, but shapes trees and carries seeds. Even the growth of plants follows their own rhythms, respecting light, soil, and climate. Applied to human life, Wu Wei means acting at the right time, seizing opportunities that arise naturally, and allowing solutions to emerge from alignment with context instead of trying to force artificial results. On a personal level, this practice involves recognizing one's limits, prioritizing essential actions, trusting the natural development of situations, and cultivating patience in the face of inevitable challenges and delays. In human relationships, Wu Wei teaches that coercion, the imposition of wills, or the insistence on controlling results generate resistance and tension. On the other hand, fluidity, empathy, and silent observation allow connections to strengthen naturally, organically, and durably. In the modern world, marked by haste, excessive ambition, and constant pursuit of immediate results, understanding and applying Wu Wei becomes a transformative skill, offering clarity, serenity, and effectiveness, reducing emotional strain and promoting wiser, more balanced decisions. Laozi reveals that acting without artificial effort is acting with wisdom, and that harmony with the Tao is not achieved through force, but through refined perception, conscious adaptation, and trust in the natural flow of life, allowing each action to be meaningful, precise, and aligned with the essence of existence, proving that true power lies in the ability to follow the flow, respect cycles, and let life manifest with natural and silent perfection. Laozi emphasizes that humility and flexibility are essential virtues for inner harmony and alignment with the Tao. For the master, arrogance, rigidity, and the illusory sense of self-sufficiency create internal and external conflicts, blocking the natural flow of life and hindering a deep understanding of reality. Humility is not about inferiority or submission, but about recognizing one's own limitations, the interdependence of all beings, and the impossibility of fully controlling events, cultivating respect, openness, and receptivity. Flexibility, in turn, is the ability to adapt to circumstances, overcome obstacles, and adjust behaviors without losing essence, reflecting the same quality that water has in molding itself to the container it occupies without ever losing its nature. Laozi often compares the sage to a plant or a river. The plant bends to the wind so as not to break. The river flows around stones and mountains to continue its journey. In human behavior, these virtues manifest in the ability to listen before speaking, to observe before judging, and to act gently instead of imposing, promoting more balanced relationships, more effective solutions, and greater integration with the social and natural environment. In the modern context, where external pressures, competition, and inflated egos are constant, cultivating humility and flexibility is a powerful antidote to stress, frustration, and unnecessary conflicts, allowing the individual to navigate situations with serenity and intelligence. Furthermore, Laozi shows that flexibility is also a form of subtle strength. Instead of resisting, the sage adapts, finds alternative paths, preserves energy, and achieves goals naturally, without excessive strain or useless confrontation. Humility creates space for continuous learning, recognizing that wisdom is present in all aspects of life, in people, in nature, and in events, and that only by accepting one's own vulnerability is it possible to achieve growth and alignment with the Tao. In this way, the integration of these virtues transforms life into a harmonious flow, where action and contemplation, effort and surrender, assertiveness and gentleness coexist in balance, revealing that true greatness is not measured by ostentation or strength, but by the inability to live in an adaptable, receptive way, aligned with the natural flow of existence, becoming a silent example of wisdom, patience, and effectiveness that reflects the eternal principles of Taoism. Laozi teaches that simplicity is a direct path to clarity, inner peace, and harmony with the Tao, being an essential principle for dealing with the complexity and excess that characterize daily life. Simplicity is not limited to reducing material possessions or responsibilities, but involves uncomplicating thought, emotions, and actions, identifying and valuing what is truly essential while leaving aside what is superfluous, artificial, or generates distraction and anxiety. In Taoism, the practice of simplicity is intrinsically linked to the concept of Wu Wei, since by acting in a simple and natural way, the individual aligns with the rhythms of life and the invisible laws of the universe, avoiding wasted energy, unnecessary conflicts, and suffering caused by resistance to reality. Laozi points out that the modern life, with its excess of information, social pressures, and exaggerated ambitions, often distances us from this state of simplicity, leading to mental fatigue, dispersion, and the loss of the sense of the essential. To counteract this, he proposes practices that promote the reduction of excess, prioritizing genuine needs instead of impulsive desires, simplifying routines, eliminating unnecessary complications in relationships and decisions, and cultivating moments of stillness and contemplation, allowing the mind to observe the flow of life without constant interference. Simplicity, according to Laozi, is not synonymous with weakness or passivity, but with applied wisdom. For only those who understand the essential can act with clarity, effectiveness, and harmony, achieving deep results without excessive effort. In daily practice, this translates into conscious choices that reduce stress, increase efficiency, and strengthen the connection with oneself and with the environment, promoting emotional and spiritual balance. Simplicity also reveals a profound ethical aspect. By not clinging to excess possessions, status, or power, the individual avoids uncontrolled ambition, inflated ego, and the tensions that arise from incessant competition, creating space for generosity, humility, and more authentic and healthy human relationships. Laozi shows us that by adopting simplicity as a philosophy of life, every action becomes more meaningful, every decision more coherent, and every moment more complete, allowing human beings to live with depth, serenity, and natural alignment, experiencing the balance that comes from conscious observation of the essential, the elimination of the superfluous, and the harmonious integration with the continuous flow of the Tao, transforming daily life into an exercise of presence, clarity, and silent wisdom. For Laozi, patience is an essential virtue to live aligned with the Tao, for it recognizes that all things follow natural cycles and that haste and impatience generate imbalance, frustration, and superficial results. He teaches us that time has its own rhythm, distinct from human desire to accelerate events, and that only those who understand this flow can act effectively, seizing opportunities and allowing processes to fully unfold. Patience in this context is not mere passive waiting, but an active acceptance of natural time, combined with observation, preparation, and discernment, so that every action occurs at the right moment with maximum efficiency and minimal waste of energy. Laozi often compares this principle to the growth of plants or the flow of rivers. A tree does not hurry the blooming of its flowers, and the river does not force its course. Both follow the natural order, adjusting to circumstances and the environment, achieving their goals fluidly and harmoniously. In human life, cultivating patience means resisting social pressure for immediate results, learning to deal with delays, frustrations, and adversities, and understanding that each event, whether positive or negative, has its place and purpose within the greater flow of existence. This understanding allows the individual to make more conscious decisions, avoid impulsive mistakes, and maintain serenity even in challenging situations, reinforcing the idea that haste and anxiety often sabotage success and inner harmony. Furthermore, patience is directly related to the capacity for empathy and understanding of others, for by respecting other people's time and personal rhythms, the individual strengthens relationships, builds trust, and reduces unnecessary conflicts. In a contemporary world marked by immediacy, information overload, and unrealistic expectations, patience becomes both a strategic and spiritual skill, allowing human beings to perceive the depth of each experience, value processes, and cultivate resilience, avoiding the interference of urgency in the quality of their choices and actions. Laozi reminds us that true mastery of life does not lie in controlling time or accelerating events, but in not understanding and respecting the natural rhythm of things, integrating observation, conscious action, and wise waiting, so that each step is precise, each decision coherent, and each experience fully lived, revealing that patience is a form of practical wisdom indispensable for achieving balance, clarity, and fulfillment in all aspects of life. The relevance of Laozi's teachings remains immense in the contemporary context, where life is marked by constant haste, excess stimuli, digital distractions, and pressure for immediate results. Integrating Taoism into modern life requires a conscious practice of simplicity, observation, flexibility, and alignment with natural rhythms, creating space for introspection, serenity, and effective action. Laozi invites us to adopt a perspective that transcends urgency and anxiety, emphasizing that life should not be lived as a series of tasks to be completed, but as a continuous flow of experiences to be perceived and understood. This means valuing processes instead of obsessively pursuing results, acting naturally instead of forcing events, and cultivating inner silence as a tool for discernment and clarity. In modern life, integrating such principles involves concrete practices, simplifying daily routines, reducing unnecessary distractions, prioritizing authentic relationships, acting in harmony with natural cycles and respecting one's own physical and emotional limits. It also implies adopting Wu Wei, or action without forced effort, recognizing that not everything can or should be controlled, and that patience and attentive observation often produce superior results compared to rushed or manipulative actions. Moreover, Laozi's teachings highlight the importance of humility, flexibility, and adaptation, enabling individuals to deal with unexpected changes, complex challenges, and uncertainties with emotional balance and resilience. On a psychological level, these principles help reduce stress, anxiety, and mental overload, promoting a more conscious, coherent, and healthy life. Spiritually, the integration of Taoism into modern life leads to reconnection with one's essence, the perception of the interdependence of all phenomena, and the ability to experience a profound harmony with the universe, even amid contemporary complexity. Laozi demonstrates that true wisdom consists in living in alignment with nature, respecting cycles, cultivating silence and patience, simplifying life, and acting with clarity and fluidity, revealing that balance, serenity, and fulfillment are not products of force or control, but of understanding, observation, and the harmonious integration of the individual with the continuous flow of the Tao. By applying these teachings in a practical and constant way, each person can transform daily life, relationships, and their own consciousness, becoming able to navigate modern challenges with wisdom, lightness, and depth, incorporating simplicity, patience, flexibility, and silence as pillars of a full, balanced life aligned with the eternal essence of existence, just as Laozi proposed millennia ago, demonstrating that ancient wisdom is not only relevant, but absolutely necessary for emotional, mental, and spiritual survival in the contemporary world.